Well, it was pretty strange. Obviously, the pandemic was like the major reason. The plan was to have the record finished by spring and then be on the road touring in summer of 2020. But when everything kind of went into lockdown, we really had to reassess our plans because we weren't able to be in the same room together, and we ended up making the record in small chunks over a few months here, a few months here, and then we go into lockdown again, and then we'd start up again. So it was kind of like an on and off process for the last year and a half. It's when we're normally making a record, we'll kind of have a deadline date. So we'll record the record over 4 months or so, working every day, as opposed to with the pandemic. Sometimes we'd work for a month and then we go into lockdown again. So we were nervous to be in the same room together, type thing, because it's a very small room, our control room at the studio. So during this record, I would record just me and Ben recording his vocals. I would be recording his vocals, and I recorded my own background vocals. And then when we were doing guitars, it would just be me and one engineer in the room for several months at a time. So doing this on and off process as well. My over the last, I guess it would be, it's been 2 years. And as well, my mother passed away in May of last year, sadly. So I needed to take several months off after that to just to spend with family, so it was a trying, long, kind of difficult process to make this record, but I'm just so happy it's finally done and people get to hear it. Oh, out of the ones I've produced, yes. It'll be the third that I've fully produced, and the BT2 I co-produced with Gavin Brown. It's just, I'm the main songwriter in the band, so I kind of have a kind of clear image or vision of what the song sounds like in my head. So over the years, learning from other producers like Gavin and Brennan O'Brien, you really take in things and you learn how to do things. For me, it was more so the technical side and getting sounds and stuff I'm pretty familiar with already. But it just made sense for me to produce these albums because we have our own studio and we can work whenever we want. And I already have an idea of what the song should sound like finished. So I want to get as close to that goal as possible. And this record is a good example of that. I usually demo everything before. All the songs are demoed before we go into the studio. So going to the studio for me is just making everything sound sonically the best you can make it sound, and getting the best performances out of the other guys in the band and myself. Probably out of all the songs, I think The Wolf would have been difficult to produce. We had an orchestra on that one, and the song itself wasn't very difficult to record. I did program a lot of drum stuff on that song, and but to record the orchestra was really interesting because we had David Campbell do the arrangement on that, and he's this amazing arranger and conductor from LA that he's done Metallica and a lot of big bands. So he conducted an orchestra in Nashville who we were recording their parts in Nashville at a studio while I was in Toronto. So it was all done remotely, and I thought it was going to be a difficult process, but it was actually not that difficult. It was, to record remotely during the pandemic. We were all on the same monitor, and I could hear them recording and doing every take, and David conducting them and giving them direction. So it was a pretty neat process. And then For You was probably the most guitars on one song in the album was For You. So there's acoustic guitars, 12-string guitars, and all sorts of electric guitars. There was just a lot of guitars and synthesizers too on that song that are kind of tucked in the background. But that was a hard song to record. Mine would have to be End of Me, which is our current single. it just, to me, it sounds like amazing because the guitars are really big and full, and it reminds me of songs from the 90s and recordings from the 90s. That was a really, really fun one to record. And to have Rivers Cuomo on it is just like, he's one of my favorite songwriters. It was actually Ben's suggestion. When I'd written this song, it was me playing the intro riff, which sounded like Hendrix, and then the other part sounded like Weezer. So for the longest time, I was calling it Hendrix plus Weezer. And when Ben heard it, he was like, "Wow, we should get Rivers Cuomo to sing on it. If Jimi Hendrix was alive, I'd want him to play guitar on it too." But we sent him the track. Like, the song was finished and done, and then finally we sent him the track when we were just doing masters, and he loved it. And we heard back from him about a month later. He sent his vocal tracks to us, and that happened just through our management. Like, we didn't know him personally or anything, but we were beyond thrilled to have him part of one of our songs. We've never done it before either. No, I think the pandemic is the crisis of faith right now. A few years ago, the crisis of faith was this rise of nationalism in the world, and that's still there too. So the title "Crisis of Faith" was more of a commentary on where we are in the world right now. Everything from the climate crisis to this, like I said before, the rise of nationalism, and now this pandemic. It's really, we all have to work together, and a crisis of faith in humanity is kind of what we're alluring to, because people seem to keep wanting to make the wrong choices. But the record, musically, it's kind of all over the place. It kind of showcases a lot of our different influences, and we're trying new things. A song like "Forgiveness" is more influenced by the prog bands we were listening to when we were growing up, bands like Rush. And then you have a song like "For You," which is more of almost has a poppy feel to it, and has acoustic guitars on it, but it's still a rock song. So, and then you have your classic Billy Talent sounding song like "Reckless Paradise." So it is, it's a collection of some of the best songs I think we've written over the last few years, and it really kind of runs the whole emotional gambit and covers a lot of territory. I was going to say, for most of 2020, it was recording this album. But when I wasn't, I was spending a lot of time with my family, my dad and my brother and his family, and those are times you don't get as a person that plays in a band and tours incessantly. You don't get a lot of time at home to spend with your family. So that was probably the biggest thing I did, was just spending a lot of time with my dad. It's it's a sad musician. I know a lot of bands that this was really hard on them, and a lot of artists not being able to tour. I mean, some people do this. People do this for a living, and people do this for good mental health as well. And to not be able to do that's the hard part. But we're keeping it together. Like, we get together all the time, our band, and we're planning our tours for next year, and we're so excited to play in front of people again. I would say Jimi Hendrix, because he was kind of like the innovator and inventor of a lot of the stylings that went on from the point where he came out. Yeah, for sure, Jimi Hendrix. Well, we're planning on, we start touring again in February. We finally get to do our first tour in over, I guess it's been 3 or 4 years now, across Canada. And we're touring with our good friends Rise Against, and also Pup and Nobro, 2 other great Canadian bands. So that'll kind of whet our appetite for touring again, and we're so excited to play. And then we'll be coming to the UK, and we'll see you in Rock am Ring in Rock am Park this summer. Yeah. Rock buddies. Billy Talent is so excited to play for you all again. I know it's been a long time, but we miss you and we love you, and we wanna be able to perform and be in Germany again to see our friends. So just stay safe and stay well, and keep thinking positive, and this will hopefully end. I don't know if it's ever going to end, but this pandemic it will get better, and we will be able to play shows and enjoy music and laugh together again. We haven't really, we've talked about it, but we haven't planned anything yet, but it's pretty crazy. Yeah, 30 years, because we started this band in a suburb of Toronto in 1993, the four of us in my parents' basement, all going to the same high school, bunch of, just dumb kids that love punk rock music, and we're still here. And that's a really special thing. So 30th anniversary, we have to do something special.
Radio 21. Bester Rock and Pop.